Hello, Indian mythology fans. My name is Sonika, and I am the author of the book Who God Really Is. Today, I bring you a story of selflessness that might be considered by many as foolishness. It is the story of Bhishma's promise from the famous Mahabharata. As always, after telling you the story, I will teach you the very useful lessons of this ancient Hindu myth that you can still apply to your modern personal and professional relationships and spiritual understanding in the 21st century. Now, Hinduism is sometimes called a complicated religion. It's why I wrote the book Who God Really Is, a book in which the principles of Hinduism are best understood and God is explained through a modern rational lens. Do grab your copy on Amazon today. Let me tell you the Hindu myth of Bhishma's promise now. Bhishma was born as Devavrata, the son of King Shantanu and goddess Ganga. His childhood was extraordinary. Ganga raised him in secret and trained him in all forms of knowledge, warfare, and divine wisdom. He was a warrior without equal, trained by the mighty Parashurama himself. Shantanu, the king of Hastinapura, deeply loved his son. But one day, while hunting by the river, he met Satyavati, a beautiful maiden who ferried boats across the river. The king fell madly in love and wished to marry her. However, Satyavati's father, the fisherman chief, refused outright. He had a condition. His daughter's son must be the one to inherit the throne of Hastinapura. Shantanu, bound by his love for Devavrata and his duty as king, could not agree to this condition. He returned to the palace, heartbroken and miserable. His son Devavrata noticed his father's distress and soon discovered the reason behind it. Determined to see his father happy, Devavrata went to the fishermen and solemnly swore he would renounce the throne of Hastinapura, he would never claim kingship, and he would remain a celibate all his life so that no children of his could ever contest Satyavati's descendants. This vow was so powerful, so shocking, that the heavens trembled, the gods showered flowers upon him, and from that moment, Devavrata became known as Bhishma, the son of the terrible vow. Shantanu, overwhelmed with emotion, blessed his son with Ichha Mrityu, meaning Bhishma could choose the time of his own death. Yes, Bhishma was granted the ability to choose when he would die. However, this single vow of Devavrata or Bhishma shaped the fate of Hastinapura, leading to generations of conflict and eventually the great Mahabharata war. If you are enjoying this podcast, please leave a rating or review. I really appreciate it. Fast forward to the dramatic Mahabharata war, Bhishma had remained loyal to the Kuru throne through generations. When the battle between the Pandavas and the Kauravas became inevitable, Bhishma, bound by his duty, became the commander of the Kaurava army. Despite knowing the Pandavas were righteous and Lord Krishna was with them, Bhishma fought on the side of Duryodhana, as his vow of loyalty to Hastinapura kept him bound to the Kuru throne. For 10 days, Bhishma was unstoppable on the battlefield. He slaughtered warriors by the thousands and even made Lord Krishna himself lose his temper. After all, only Bhishma could decide when he would himself die. Not even the Lord could break that gift that was given to him. At one point, Lord Krishna lifted his Sudarshana Chakra to kill Bhishma because he refused to stop his destruction. But Bhishma, instead of fearing death, dropped his weapons and bowed before Lord Krishna, eager to die at the hands of God. However, Krishna, realizing Bhishma's devotion, calmed down and stepped back. The Pandavas were desperate. Bhishma had to be stopped, but due to his vow, due to the gift he was given, he was practically invincible. No one could decide how or the timing of his death. No one could decide Bhishma's death timing except himself. It was only Shikandi, a warrior born as a woman, but who later transformed into a man who could stand against him. Bhishma had vowed never to fight a woman, and since he considered Shikandi a woman, he refused to raise his weapons against him. On the 10th day, Arjuna, using Shikandi as a shield, rained arrows upon Bhishma. Though Bhishma could have easily defended himself, he willingly took the arrows, honoring his vow. Arjuna's arrows pierced his body, and he fell from his chariot. But he did not touch the ground. His body was held up by the arrows, forming a bed of piercing shafts. Bhishma, despite being mortally wounded, did not die immediately. Again, remember the boon his father had given him? Bhishma had the power to choose the moment of his own death, no matter how wounded he was. So not even Shikandi, not even the usage of Shikandi could actually bring about Bhishma's death. Only Bhishma could make that decision as to the timing of his own death. As he lay on the battlefield, warriors from both sides gathered around him, watching in awe and sorrow. Even Duryodhana and the Kauravas, despite their arrogance, were devastated at his fall. Lord Krishna, the Pandavas, and even the great sages came to witness this moment. Bhishma, still lying on his bed of arrows, requested water. Arjuna, filled with love and respect, shot an arrow into the ground, and from that spot a pure stream of the Ganga river emerged, quenching Bhishma's thirst. Though he was suffering, Bhishma waited. He had sworn not to die until the northward journey of the sun took place, which was considered an auspicious occurrence or time for passing into the afterlife. So Bhishma lay there, imparting deep wisdom to Yudhishthira and the Pandavas. He spoke about dharma, kingship, and righteousness, offering them guidance on how to rule wisely. Finally, when the sun moved into the north, Bhishma let go of his life, merging with the divine. The heavens rejoiced, for one of the greatest warriors and wisest men, one of the most selfless men, had finally ascended to his rightful place. Bhishma's vow is a powerful metaphor for the mental programs and beliefs we adopt in life, often shaping our careers and family responsibilities. These are the lessons that we learn from the story, the Hindu myth of Bhishma's promise. Just as Bhishma's oath to remain celibate and loyal to the throne dictated his destiny, our own deeply held beliefs, whether formed through culture, upbringing, or personal experience, can define the paths we take. Some of these commitments are conscious, like choosing a career for financial security or making sacrifices for family, while others are subconscious, driven by expectations and societal norms. Like Bhishma, we often make decisions that seem right in the moment, but later realize they come with unforeseen circumstances. Look at all the consequences, the conflict that arose from Bhishma's vow, the vow that Bhishma made as Devavrata to his father so that he could see his father marry the woman he loved. The Mahabharata war and the conflicts were truly unforeseen consequences. In our professional lives, we frequently create rigid mindsets about what is success, what is dutiful, what is responsibility, much like Bhishma's unbreakable loyalty to his vow and to Hastinapura. We may convince ourselves that a particular job, title, or role is our duty, even if it no longer serves our happiness or growth or the good of all involved. Some people remain in unfulfilling careers simply because they feel bound by early choices or familial expectations, much like Bhishma felt bound by his vow even when he knew Duryodhana's actions were unjust. The lesson here is not to abandon duty, but to recognize when a rigid mindset prevents growth or leads to unnecessary suffering. Similarly, in family life, we often assume roles based on inherited beliefs, what it means to be a good parent, a spouse, or child. Bhishma's sense of duty and his inability to adapt kept him loyal to a kingdom that ultimately suffered. Likewise, when we hold on to traditional roles without questioning whether they serve the greater good, we may unintentionally create conflict or limit our personal well-being. Healthy families evolve when individuals balance duty with wisdom, just as Bhishma eventually shared his insights at the end of the story, ensuring the next generation learned from his struggles. Here I am reminded of how King Solomon in the Hebrew Bible shared his wisdom toward the end of his life and his struggles with women and everything else that he went through, but he did not actually live with wisdom himself for most of his life. So at the end of his life, he shared his struggles and his wisdom so that the next generation would not make the same mistakes that he did. In this Hindu myth, we find Bhishma in essentially the same position. I am also reminded of what I wrote in my book, Who God Really Is. The proper saturations of each hue in our intelligence gradients are all necessary for us to successfully strike just the right balance that each experience in existence calls for. We have to tap into all 7 foundational dimensions of the spiritual subuniverse to just the right degrees or extents in accordance with the needs of the moment. To understand what these dimensions of spiritual subuniverse are, do grab your copy of my book, Who God Really Is, on Amazon today. Bhishma's decision to delay his death until the auspicious time when the sun moved northward reflects a profound lesson about proper timing, patience, and strategic decision-making in life. Just as he waited for the right cosmic moment to leave his mortal body, we too must learn to act at the right time in our careers, relationships, and personal growth. Many people make hasty decisions due to pressure, fear, or external circumstances. But the Hindu myth of Bhishma's promise teaches us the value of waiting for the right conditions before making life-altering choices. Success often depends not just on action, but on choosing the right moment for that action. In our professional lives, this concept translates to knowing when to move on, when to persevere, and when to transition. Some people quit jobs too soon, while others stay too long in stagnant roles. Bhishma could have given up immediately after falling on the battlefield, but he knew his knowledge and guidance were still needed. He also had profound spiritual understanding, so he understood the value of auspiciousness and auspicious timing. Similarly, in our careers in the modern 21st century or our postmodern world, we should recognize that even in difficult circumstances, our wisdom and experience can still be of value. However, just like Bhishma ultimately let go when the time was right, we must also recognize when it's time for us to step away, whether from a job, a project, or even an outdated mindset. I'm reminded here of how certain celebrities choose to retire when they are at their peak rather than when they start to fall from grace. So they recognize that they're not going to be on top or be favorably viewed all the time or for a long time or forever. So they choose to retire when they're at their high, at their peak, rather than when they start to have a fall from grace event in their lives. In family life, Bhishma's decision symbolizes the importance of leaving a legacy before departing from a role or responsibility. Instead of simply exiting, he spent his final days imparting wisdom to the Pandavas, ensuring that the next generation benefited from his experience. There is a crucial lesson in all this. Before stepping back from any responsibility, be it as a parent, leader, or mentor, it is wise to prepare those who will take over. Many people struggle with transitioning out of active roles, but Bhishma shows that a well-timed departure paired with guidance creates a smooth and meaningful succession. Ultimately, Bhishma's choice reminds us that we are not just bound by time, but also empowered by it. Knowing when to hold on, when to contribute, and when to let go is key to a fulfilling life. He had the power to die whenever he wished. Yes, true, but Bhishma didn't let pain or emotion dictate his exit. Instead, he aligned his departure with the right moment. In life, in our postmodern world, success, happiness, and peace often come not just from what we do, but when we choose to do it. A key takeaway from Bhishma's story, again, is that commitment should be balanced with discernment. While discipline and loyalty are virtues, we must also recognize when our mindset needs to evolve. Being flexible in our thinking allows us to serve both our responsibilities and our personal fulfillment. Bhishma's tragedy lay not in his vow ultimately, but in his inability to break free when it no longer served righteousness. So he really forced himself into a position of fighting for the wrong side. Unlike him, we in our postmodern world in the 21st century can learn to question, adapt, and make choices that honor both our commitments, but also our well-being and the well-being of the community, more people than just us. If you have found it somewhat difficult to understand God well through the often complex Hindu stories, then do read my book, Who God Really Is, on Amazon. It is a book in which the principles of Hinduism are best understood and God is explained through a modern rational lens. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak with you in the next episode.